Hey guys, it's IQ. Can someone tell me why, after 16 seasons, TLC has never, ever taken the time to address the 1,000-pound elephant in the room?
Do you think our family feels like it used to?
Hey, so can I address the pink elephant I think that's in the room? Are you guys trying to say this is because of me coming in the family?
No.
Yes, Robin. The answer is yes. Even throughout all of the tell-alls of season 16, I think we were all waiting for someone to address it, and it never happened. They may never address the obvious, unspoken problem on the show, but we are definitely going to be addressing it here, and we're addressing it now. One of my lovely commenters and viewers probably worded it better than I could. If humans said what they actually meant, he, meaning Kody, might say, "I was content and cared about all of them. Then I met the love of my life." I guess that the biggest risk in this setup is that the husband might meet the one. And this is what we're going to explore today, because Kody from season 1 has lost his damn mind. There is no objectivity. There is no equal treatment of the wives. And this is what I really want to explore today. As we have discussed before, there were definitely a lot of cracks in the marriages before Robin even entered into the picture. And there was an overwhelming majority of people and viewers of the show and those who follow this family for years who believe that the dynamics in the family drastically changed once Robin entered the family. And yes, once again, guys, this is not a bash Robin video because quite honestly, I believe most, not all, but a majority of the blame should fall on the shoulders of the one and only Kody Brown. And don't worry, we're going to get into all of the nitty-gritty in just a second. But first, you need to know that on this video, we're going to go over all of the various ways Kody Brown's choices and his biases and his favoritism led to the downfall and the destruction of his original family nucleus and family culture. After 16 seasons and 12 years on the air, the aftermath of his repeated offenses were laid out in front of all of us during the Sister Wives' very revealing tell-all, which painted a picture of the Browns as an extremely fractured family unit. Now, the consequences of choices that he made almost a decade ago has finally caught up to the family when Christine decided to divorce Kody and move back to Utah at the end of 2021. And Kody has now admitted that he basically only has one fully functioning marriage, which is to his true love and soulmate, Robin.
You really are the only one that's having a fully functioning relationship with Kody.
So how did all of Kody's other marriages get to this point? There are so many nuanced conversations, there's fights, arguments, and hurt feelings that have been building and building and building for years that finally led to their state of affairs at this particular time and in this particular place in their lives. And today, let's get into it all. We are going to be discussing everything that changed once Kody decided to add Robin into the family. Let's review the past footage from the show, as well as the past interviews and social media posts, which shed light on some crucial factors that led to the disarray, resentment, and anger with most of his marriages. And there is a lot to go over. So let's begin. And don't forget, this is just one installment in a huge deep dive series of Sister Wives. So once you're done watching this video, there's a link in the description box. There's a link in the pinned comment section. Just go to my channel page. You will see an entire playlist for Sister Wives that is just sitting there waiting for you to binge watch. All right, so there's a lot to get over in this video, so let's begin. Back when Sister Wives first premiered and was airing for the first time, TLC described the show as giving viewers a look behind the curtain inside the secret world of a polygamous family who was transitioning to adding a new fourth wife. And TLC posed the question how the family would adapt after the addition of the fourth wife by asking this question: will it disrupt the balance and change the Browns' lives for the worse? Well, by the end of season 16's tell-all, I think we finally have our answer. Yes, the balance was disrupted. And yes, almost all of the relationships are now worse off. Except for one, which is what we're focusing on today. How is one relationship thriving while 3 others have all but failed? Well, I personally believe, my theory, conspiracy speculation, is that it is all about favoritism. And in order to start this story off right, I think it's important for us to start way back before Kody even met Robin. It is crucial that we go back in time to take a look at the details of Robin's first marriage. So Robin's first marriage, she was married to a guy named David Jessup.
I was married before, and we were in a polygamous culture, but we never took on another wife. We were monogamous.
Now, there are so many of you guys that were telling me throughout our live chats and in the comment sections of all the other Sister Wife Deep Dives how much David Jessup looked like Kody. So, I did a little digging, and man, you guys were so right. Now, this picture is not my work. Someone else did it, but it is an excellent Photoshop job just to show you the visualization of how similar these 2 guys are. Look at this. It's so eerie. So that got me thinking. Because a lot of you also said that Kody and David were related, I wanted to go back and check. So I typed in, is Kody Brown related to David Jessup? And at this point, I cannot find any confirmation from any official family member that either confirms or denies that they're related. So what I am about to say is only an allegation and speculation because I would much rather hear a confirmation from a credible source. But allegedly, supposedly, there is a website called Screen Rant that stated that David Jessup is Christine's first cousin and Kody's third cousin. Now, like I said, I can't confirm or deny that. That's what they said, but I really want to wait for an official statement from one of the family members. But it would be interesting if that was true, because they really eerily look related. They really strike a similar resemblance. So, sporadically throughout the show, Robin gives viewers a glimpse into her life during her first marriage, and it definitely seemed like a struggle throughout the entire marriage. Now, Robin briefly mentioned this period of her life on the show.
I was married before, and we were in a polygamous culture, but we never took on another wife. We were monogamous.
And this brings up so many more questions. If she and her first husband grew up in a polygamous culture, then the most natural next question would be, then why did they not decide to add another wife during their 10 years of marriage? Wasn't this a lifestyle that Robin supposedly wanted? It's a fair question. During Robin's first marriage, she explained that they were in the polygamous culture, but that they never took on another wife. So you're telling me that in 10 years of marriage, they lived a monogamous lifestyle. And I find that part so fascinating because for 10 years, they never took on not one wife. Especially because Robin is so pro-polygamy and pro-sister wives, and she's always wanted to have sister wives. So if her first marriage was already in the polygamous culture, why would they not add a wife after 10 years of marriage? And I feel like her, as the first wife, would have had a lot more influence and say over the path that they chose. What baffles my mind is why no interviewer on TLC or any of the other side interviews that they do, media outlets, whatever, even in the book, no one has asked Robin this question, and I would really love to know. This topic has never been explored. I mean, it's been explored by the sleuths online, but I don't think it's ever been answered by the family. And if it has, listen, I missed it. Let us know in the comment section below, because I think a lot of us want to know. But I think that this is very important because to me, there's only 3 real possibilities for Robin and her husband not adding another wife. Possibility number 1, Robin never wanted to add a new wife into the family. Possibility 2, the husband never wanted to add a new wife into the family, which I don't know. Find that one a little bit hard to believe, but it's possible. And then there's possibility number 3, is that since their marriage was already pretty rocky, maybe they both agreed that it would be unhealthy to add someone else to the mix when things were already struggling. Can you think of anyone else in the family that would agree with that sentiment? Maybe not the best thing to add a wife when things are not going so well. That is some solid advice. So, am I missing any other possibilities here? Let us know in the comment section because you guys are always a wealth of information. You guys, if you're not reading the comment section, you're missing out. I'm telling you. I learned so much from the comment section. You guys are amazing. So in 2009, Robin officially divorced David. But I really do think that it was years before that when she knew that the marriage was over. And maybe that's when they started to go through the proceedings. And maybe it was just a long time before there was an official divorce. Because a year, 2 years prior to her official divorce, Robin wrote a list of all the criteria that she wanted in a mate.
I have a list of things I wrote 2 years ago that I wanted in a potential mate. Kody is him.
And guess who fit the bill? So Robin officially divorced David in 2009, and by 2010, she would meet Kody and be introduced into the family. All right, so speaking of elephants in the room, we need to talk about the fact that Christine was never, ever okay with adding another wife. And it's another question that I just don't understand why TLC interviewers or outside interviewers, why hasn't anyone asked the hard-hitting questions about this family? Let's establish what the family's ground rules were about accepting a new wife into the family. And this information comes from no other than Kody Brown's words in the book, Becoming Sister Wives. Of course, a man must have the permission of his wives to consider a courtship. After all, the women he wishes to court is going to be as much a part of his wives' lives as she will be of his. If my wives didn't want me to pursue a relationship with someone, I'd have no choice but to obey their wishes. My first duty is to them. If I hadn't had their blessing, I would have never gone forward with courting Robin. Family always comes first. Yeah, right. Hogwash. So keep this statement in mind, and we definitely will be revisiting it here in a second because the whole statement is false. Or maybe Kody was in denial, or maybe he was lying to himself. But either way, we're going to go over all the ways that his family, in particular Christine, didn't come first during this time. So during this time, pre-Robin, according to all accounts during this time, Kody's relationship was fine with Christine and it was fine with Janelle, but it was pretty rocky with Mary. And not only was Mary not getting along with the other wives, but her and Kody had hit a rough patch. Now listen to Mary explain why she wanted Robin in the family, and you're gonna hear a lot of the word me and I.
I just knew that she was a person that I could be friends with, you know, and even more than that, you know, have her in my family and have her love my daughter and all our kids and me love her kids.
So now we need to add Kody to the mix because on the show, he is so quick to pass the buck to Mary and how it was all her revelation and it was all her and it was guided by her. And it's like he's just sitting there and it's coming to him. That's basically the story that we're given.
So Mary introduces Robin and I essentially. Mary and her literally develop a bond. There was a spiritual drive that said to her, this is something that's going to be part of your life.
And that would be a great story to tell his wives. I think his wives would feel very secure with that story. But the problem is that wasn't exactly how it went down. Mary talked more in detail about this in an excerpt in their book. We soon discovered that Robin was divorced, but believed in the principle of plural marriage. Kody and I began to talk about her between ourselves. It didn't seem necessary to bring up the subject of Robin to the rest of the family until it was more apparent that there might be a potential for courtship. So she just became a little connection that Kody and I shared, a sweet, special bond in a time of turmoil between us. Since things were rocky between Kody and me, it was a little unusual to consider bringing a new wife into the picture, especially given that I had never, ever thought that Robin would solve my problems with Kody. I just felt drawn to her in a way that satisfied me. I wanted her as a friend, and I had a clear vision of her in our lives. Janelle and Christine had not yet met her, so this little relationship between Kody, Robin, and me felt special. So as much as Kody wants to give the appearance that this is all orchestrated by Mary, it just doesn't seem like that's the reality. And Christine felt completely out of the loop.
I really felt out of loop the whole thing. I hadn't met Robin at all for 3-4 weeks after Mary and Kody did. And so the whole Robin coming along was making me mad because I hadn't met her.
And Christine gives a very detailed account of how they pretty much bum rushed her into the idea that this courtship was going to happen. This doesn't sound like asking for permission.
And here Cody's going on and on and on about her. He prays about it. He gets a testimony that, she is definitely someone that he wants in the family. Mary, same thing, hook, line, and sinker. She's done. And I'm panicking.
By the time Christine found out about Robin, Kody had already prayed about it, and he had already received a testimony that Robin was going to be in the family. And the same with Mary. Christine used the words about Mary, hook, line, and sinker, meaning they were moving forward with this with or without her. Okay, guys, did that sound like consent to you? Did that sound like respecting all of his wives? Does that sound like I would never go forward with this without all of my wives' approval because my family comes first and I respect them so much? Does it? Does that sound like consent to you? Okay, so let's just read the excerpt once again because it is so important and so relevant to this situation. Of course, a man must have permission of his wives to consider a courtship. Okay, it doesn't sound like that's what happened. After all, the woman he wishes to court is going to be as much a part of the wives' lives as she will be of his. If my wives didn't want me to pursue a relationship with someone, and that's just pursue a relationship, not add someone to the relationship. If my wives didn't want me to pursue a relationship with someone, I'd have no choice but to obey their wishes.
Starting to feel like I would comment to Christine, gosh, we sure need another one. It's getting kind of boring,
Yeah, and Mary made comments like that too. And I'd be like, you guys are insane. It's fine how it is. I don't want to rock the boat.
Did that clip, anything that Christine said, did that sound like her wishes were being obeyed?
And here Cody's going on and on and on about her. He prays about it. He gets a testimony that, she is definitely someone that he wants in the family. Mary, same thing, hook, line, and sinker. She's done. And I'm panicking.
I think not. My first duty is to them. False. If I hadn't had their blessing, I'd have gone forward without courting Robin. Family always comes first. Did that sound like Christine's experience at all? I don't get it. Is Kody delusional? It's baffling. It's baffling. Does anyone see it that way? Does anyone see it his way? Am I going crazy? Please let me know. And remember, he says wives, plural, any of his wives. I know that people have said in the comment section, really, it depends on the first wife. The first wife has the authority with him to get another wife. But that's not what their family's rules are. He said wives, plural, not just the first wife, all of his wives. That's from the words from his mouth. I mean, this really reminds me of the clip that I always refer to from Nancy, the therapist.
From my perception, you're both exceedingly controlling people. I've never seen you not get your way in a very significant situation. The family moved when you had great opposition, all those kinds of things.
Okay, and this next part from Christine is absolutely heartbreaking because she had absolutely no voice in the situation.
I haven't met her. I don't know what she's like. Never even seen her before. And I thought it was horrible. I totally felt like I lost my best friend.
The decision to have Robin enter the family had already been made. And to be honest, it was at this moment that Christine really did lose her best friend. That trust with Kody, that friendship, it had just been broken. And the sad part is it would never return again. We've seen it play out on the show. And the part that infuriates me is that either Kody is this diabolical manipulator, or he's just clueless, or maybe a little bit of both. You guys take your pick. But I really believe that it was during this private conversation that Kody believed that Christine really gave her blessing and was really happy, as he was, about pursuing this relationship. So listen to this.
I was sobbing. I didn't know what was wrong. I'm looking at her. I don't know what's wrong. But I'm like, my heart is breaking in a million pieces, all this. And Christine's like, well, you're lovesick. And the only cure is a marriage. You know?
Did that sound like a woman who was really happy about getting another wife? Now, I could be really wrong. So what do you guys think? But for me, I read the situation as Christine just really loving Kody. And Kody had already been acting so depressed. He was crying. He was moping around like life couldn't go on without Robin.
When Robin and I were new in the relationship, my heart I was going through some real difficult times. And I'm in Christine's room sobbing.
I remember, yeah.
Sorry.
That Kody would never be happy or complete unless Robin was in his life. So, you know what a lot of people do that are unselfish partners? A lot of times, there's things that you do when you love unconditionally. And even if it's not what you want, you do it because the other person wants it. And I think that that's why Christine gave in. She compromised her happiness, her wants, and her needs for Kody's happiness and his wants and his needs. And I really do believe that this was a very crucial moment. And Kody just thought of it as Christine being okay with Robin coming into the family, and that's it. But no, not really. Christine had always wanted to be the third wife. And although she doesn't exactly state it directly, I believe that it was implied that her desire was always to be the last wife.
I decided when I was about 19 that I wanted to enter a plural family, wanted to enter as the third wife. So I only ever wanted to be a third. I never wanted to be a first at all because I didn't want to be married to a guy by myself.
Now I'm just throwing this out there, but do you guys ever wonder exactly what was on Robin's list with her criteria for her perfect polygamous mate? Do you think that maybe one of them was that she was also the last wife in a family? I mean, it's just crazy that you go from someone like Kody fit everything in the bill. Everything was perfect down to the T on her list. Maybe her and Christine thought similarly. Maybe she did want to be the last wife. Like you go from a monogamous relationship to being the fourth wife on a criteria that you had always wanted. I mean, it would be a pretty good chance probably that she would be the last wife. She's like just turned 30 or 31. Kody's in his 40s. He hadn't had another wife added to the family for like 18 years. Probably a good chance that she would be the last one. Just food for thought. My conspiracy, allegedly speculation. What do you think? Christine was so upset about the courtship, and especially the long drives to see Robin because it took away time from their family.
It's been challenging because she's about 4 hours away. Biggest challenge of the distance is actually the fact that my wives don't like me being away.
I think he's gone way too much. I think him going down to see Robin is tearing us apart a bit.
And listen to her feelings on this.
She lives far. She lives like 5 hours away. And so I was told, there was a couple of times where I'm like, you really can't go. You can't leave me. And you can't leave your family. Here you are replacing your family with Robin and her kids.
Her statement at the beginning of Sister Wives is so relevant to the theme all throughout the season, and particularly in relation to everything that has happened in season 15 and season 16 and the tell-alls.
Do you feel like you're an easy target?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Why?
I get along with Kody.
I think plural marriage fits well with the personality of one of my wives. I'm not going to tell you which wives do better and which wives don't do well with plural marriage because I don't want the world judging them.
I think Christine was basically slowly broken down into accepting what Kody wanted, which is Robin being in the family and Mary having her best friend. And I believe she thought that in her sacrifice, that maybe Kody would reciprocate the gratitude and things would at least be the way that they used to be.
And so when Robin comes in the family, she's not taking anything away from anybody else. I still have as much depth, love, and affection for Mary, Janelle, and Christine as I ever did.
You really are the only one that's having a fully functioning relationship with Kody.
But as we all know, it didn't stay the same. And it never got better. It only got worse and worse from here. And by worse, I say that the favoritism, that the bias, that the Team Robin and Team Kody, and the animosity towards the other wives grew and grew and grew by each passing season.
Like, is misunderstood that there's this cat fight, if you will, for my time, but that's not really there because all the relationships are being nurtured and the family is being nurtured. The apparent and obvious unfairness in the relationship. I have all the love I want, and you guys sometimes feel like you're pining constantly for me to, give you some.
Now, I've reiterated this before, and I'm going to say it again. I believe that most of the blame with the breakdown of this family should be placed on Kody. And I want to point you to the professional who understands the inner workings of plural marriage much better than I. And that person is the PhD professor of anthropology, Dr. William Jankowak, who I like to call Dr. J. It's just easier for me. And he was featured on the show. He spent a lot of time studying plural marriages and polygamy, and I want to go over the very crucial and extremely relevant information that Dr. J revealed about the requirements for a healthy polygamous family to survive.
When I initially started probing what a polygamous family might look like, the families that did work, they had the following characteristics. One, they were economically well off. Two, is that the husband worked very hard on trying to manage his affection. If he had a favorite wife, he kept it very, very quiet. And third, and most important, and this is what I really learned from the Browns, is that the sister wives had become friends.
I don't even have to tell you how these factors really affected this family. As you know, I really focus on number 2 and number 3, where the husband works hard on managing his affections. That's the opposite of what Kody's done. And if he had a favorite wife, he kept it secret. That's the opposite of what Kody's done. The whole world knows that Kody favors Robin, even his children, his wives, and the whole world. And that the sister wives have become friends. So let's come back to the present time to see exactly where these friendly sister wife relationships are.
other than Mary, I'm not sure that the others would ever want to be her friend.
Had a conversation with Janelle recently where I said, I want the good sister-wife relationship. I know they exist. She kind of said, well, you know, I'll have to think about that.
Mary has these great relationships everywhere she goes in business, but she doesn't have great relationships with the family. Curious why her cohorts in business outside the family have these phenomenal relationships with her and none of us do.
In present time, Kody is so quick to wag his finger at his wives and talk about how the other wives don't treat Robin well and they haven't integrated her into the family. And I think he used the word bully. And here's the reality. It's a warped reality of what these two lovebirds think is the problem.
Some of the family has come together in a little clique that has literally excluded some of the other family members, like the clickiness, the bullying, the exclusion.
Do you feel like you're an easy target?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Why?
I get along with Kody.
Did it ever dawn on Kody that it was going to be extremely hard for Robin to become friends with the other wives when your new wife is the obvious favorite? Isn't that the opposite, the exact opposite advice of what's needed for what you want, which is for a healthy, functioning, successful plural family? You're doing the exact opposite, dude.
The husband worked very hard on trying to manage his affection. If he had a favorite wife, he kept it very, very quiet.
Is that really that much of a foreign concept to him? Instead of asking why the other wives were slow to accept Robin, I would ask, why would they not? From the very beginning, Kody and Robin have had this little alliance that was always them against the world. So where's the accountability with Kody and Robin for that one? Once again, Kody set the tone in the very beginning of the relationship with Robin, when Robin wanted to be very careful with the other wife's feelings, but Kody was quick to shut that down.
There's one point when Robin was saying to me, I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt their feelings. And I'm like, you're not going to be able to help that. I knew that this was going to be a challenge. And when Robin realized that Christine's heart would break over this issue, that it got really kind of, you get introspective.
I'm questioning, going, Heavenly Father, do I still do this?
Yeah,
So,
it makes
because I'm
you
hurting them.
I'm really not sure that that was the smartest move. And I'm gonna give him some points for speaking some truth. I'm sure that no matter how much they walked on eggshells, the magnitude of what was happening, I'm sure there would be hurt feelings regardless. But you can't just throw caution to the wind and do everything that you want to do. During the introduction of Robin being integrated into the family, Kody and Robin almost always acted selfishly or shady during the beginning of their courtship and through their marriage, and honestly, it never stopped. Doesn't it take like 21 days for a new habit to form? Well, they definitely did this for beyond 21 days, and it definitely became a habit. So we already know about the secret courtship. We already talked about that. Then there was the wedding dress situation, which was so shady. To summarize, it was Robin. She had wanted this special bonding moment with the wives to have them feel included in the big wedding so that they would accept her and accept the process. And so the wives went, they were being good sports. They watched her try on wedding dresses. They helped her try to pick one out. It was this really sweet, special bonding moment. During that time, she didn't pick any dress. Well, later, Robin got with the wives and she told them, hey, I found a dress. And Janelle was asking, oh my gosh, well, which one did you choose? And Robin was like, well, it's a surprise. You'll just have to wait and see.
And although each dress was gorgeous and fun, it just wasn't quite what I wanted. So I didn't choose anything. But yeah, it's a secret now. I know what dress I want and I have it.
I know. I keep asking you, which one did you choose? And she's like, it's a secret. You'll see.
So she didn't want to give any of the details. Well, Kody and his big mouth, he was just so love-struck and a puppy dog in love. He's like a big teenager. He just couldn't contain his glee that both he and Robin had gone back to that same store and picked out a dress.
Oh, I got a bomb. Yeah, I got a bomb I'm dropping today. Yeah,
Wow.
You'll love this one. I picked the dress.
You're the groom. Did you really?
I picked the dress. And we went to Lisa's bridal, and Robin and I went and looked at dresses, and she picked one out, and I was like, holy cow, it's like I'd seen it in my dreams, you know?
Which was something that Robin wanted to keep secret because she knew that it was shady and she knew that it showed favoritism.
I had asked him, you know, not to share with anybody for the sake of sort of protecting both experiences. I didn't feel it was necessary for you guys to know that.
Because Kody never acted like that with any of his other wives. He was never excited about any wedding details. None of them.
Thanks, that's just nice to do.
I think it's important, but I don't think that it's fair that I not be involved in it.
You weren't as a groom ever involved with the wedding dress. Like you cared what I wore at all on our wedding. I mean, that wasn't even, you didn't even care.
And Christine was livid. But honestly, guys, not just Christine. You know, our very quiet, very regal Janelle was also pretty pissed off. And you know that it takes a lot for Janelle to pipe in about anything.
It's just not cool.
Kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
not
I
cool
wasn't
at all,
even
Kody.
I wasn't really emotionally involved with any of the dresses, but it's just weird. Yeah, I mean, for me, I felt like I felt betrayed because it was like Robin was all very quiet about what her dress looked like. And then all of a sudden it was like this thing that we had all done together, like the women. And then here's Kody saying, oh, well, it wasn't really for real. Like it took me back, obviously.
So this was a big deal. And another thing that I just don't understand is that Robin from day one is always crying about how she doesn't want to hurt the other women.
If I were to put myself in like Mary's or Janelle's or Christine's shoes, I think it would be, I know it would be hard. And I found out that Christine was upset. Because I knew I'd hurt you. I knew it would be complicated, but I didn't know it would break my heart.
But then, do you notice that with Kody's blessing, she almost always gets what she wants anyway? I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Good for Robin for having her needs and her voice and her wants heard and respected by Kody. But that is not going to work in a polygamous family when there are other wives that are not treated the same. By the way, just food for thought. What do you think happened to Robin's sentiment from 2005, where she once tweeted, "He does love me, but he loves Janelle, Mary, and Christine too. I couldn't love him if he didn't." So what does that mean now? Because Kody pretty much doesn't love any of them but Robin. So does that mean she can't love him now? Just a question. Just throwing that out there.
So Kody, tell me about your relationship with Mary.
There's just nothing to talk about, really. Some kind of relief from the burden and the woe of a loveless marriage.
Are you in love with Janelle?
I love Janelle.
Are you in love with Janelle?
Janelle wouldn't tell you she was in that place with me either, if she was being honest.
So what is she going to do now? Which leads me back to the topic at hand. If Robin is always so hurt and she's so sad when the other wives are hurting, and she's always thinking about putting herself last and the family first, always. It's always about the big picture, right? And sacrifice. Then why would she need to have such an extravagant wedding when she knew that Janelle and Christine, they never got a big production? Now, Mary had a great big wedding, but isn't that different? She was the first wife. They were talking about probably adding more wives, but it wasn't guaranteed. I feel like that first wedding is like different. But when you're adding in new wives, why not follow that tradition? If you really did want a seamless integration, why would you not do what you've done previously? Which is not make it such a big deal. The new additions to the family, Christine and Janelle, they didn't have anything extravagant. So wouldn't it be better to not rock the boat and do the same?
My wedding reception was totally different. I did not believe that a plural wife going into a family should have a big reception. I thought she should have a small family dinner. That was it.
I was like, do we really have to have a reception? I didn't really have a reception.
Or how about you choose one or the other? Either you have kind of an extravagant wedding ceremony or you have a big honeymoon. But guess what they did? Both. Talk about adding insult to injury. And this just automatically is going to make the wives compare. And at that time, even Mary was really hurt because she had just celebrated, I think, her 30-year anniversary with Kody. And they just had a few days. With Robin, he had 11 days of a honeymoon.
For me, I really don't think he would take 11 days. Our honeymoon was like 3 days.
You know, he and I just celebrated our 20th anniversary. We're celebrating 20 years together and I get 3 days. I want to feel as important as anybody else in his life. And when I compare, and yeah, I shouldn't compare because that always gets you in trouble, but that makes me just not feel as important. Like I wasn't as important for him to take that much time for me.
Is this really the best representation for wives to feel equal as the new wife comes into the picture? If Kody and Robin really wanted to have a smoother transition, maybe it would have been best to just dial it back a little bit. If we are talking about the overall family is so important and sacrifice is so important and being selfless and unselfish is so important. The problem is that Kody lost his damn mind when he met Robin. He was basically a giddy little schoolgirl.
Nobody in the family would ever call me romantic, I don't think. And I just kind of got overcome by this romantic bug. No self-respecting man would admit this stuff, but I kind of melted. I don't know what happened to me. It's still happening.
And even his teenage girls noticed it.
This side of our dad is kind of freaking out again.
He's a teenager again.
I love Robin. Just if he was my husband with another woman, I'd be ripping her hair out.
It is so maddening how Kody is so quick to blame his wives for the state of the family affairs. Actually, not his wives. Everyone but Robin. All of his other wives for the state of his family's affairs when it's so obvious the blame needs to start with him. From the beginning, he was dropping hints to Robin about how he didn't like his wife's behavior, how they all kind of ganged up together against him.
Best girlfriends in order to have babies.
The girls like to hang out, and they only use him for...
Right, if you notice, there's 3 animals all facing one direction. Those are all 3 females. And the guy that's the other direction, that is our breeding bull. So he's often solitary unless a female is in breeding condition. We've had
Does it all happen at the same time? Like, do they cycle at the same time?
Yes, just like human women. Yes, they will often sync up together. So the male has a lot of work ahead of him.
Sounds like hell.
Maybe not so different from some of the human world, right? Sometimes if girls, they stick together and
you don't even know.
Now, if I was putting myself in Robin's shoes in this moment, the message to me would be loud and clear. Wow, this poor guy gets picked on. That's so sad. He's basically, on this island on himself, and all the other wives pick on him. I'm going to be his ally. I'm going to try to do both. I'm going to be his ally. I'm going to be my sister wives' allies. Which would have been fine. I mean, it's great. It's a very responsible thing to do. But not when you're the favorite and you sneak around and you lie. You really are Team Kody. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Especially with the sneaking and the lying and you guys keeping things to yourselves and you guys running the narrative and the agenda. That kind of takes it to a hierarchy level where it's not even anymore. So Robin's plan backfired because it was never going to work that way. I think that Kody really did want a confidant. After 18 years, he wanted a teammate, a confidant who would side with him on things, who would hear him out, he could vent to. Because from the very beginning, it has always been Kody and Robin. And I was shocked to see how far it went back.
It has to change for the better. I have to become better. And some of them have struggled with this. And so now, Robin knowing that, is able to actually say, hey, dude, it's time for you to grow up.
So we start giving them what they've been asking for.
You had to grow up.
Well, in so many words.
Notice how he said we, not I, but we. It was like they were planning this from the beginning. It was their plan to smooth everything over, which obviously didn't work. It was a pretty damn bad plan. But we've seen it with everything, from the secret courting, to the wedding dress, to the honeymoon, to the pandemic, to moving to Flagstaff, to the one house idea, the marriage, the divorce. It's always been there. I mean, it could have been as simple as, remember when Mary made the sacrifice to divorce Kody and things kind of unraveled for Mary after that? Wouldn't it have been nice for Kody and Robin to promise, okay, yes, we're doing this for the kids, but once the kids are of legal age and the adoption doesn't matter anymore, which is not too long with Robin's kids from her first marriage, it's not that many years. After that, we're going to go back to the way things were and marry again. That would make all the wives feel more secure. That was not even brought up, not even mentioned. Wouldn't that be selfless? Wouldn't that be returning the favor?
Do you think our family feels like it used to?
Okay, so can I address the pink elephant I think that's in the room? Are you guys trying to say this is because of me coming in the family?
No.
Yes, Robin. It's because of you, but not directly. You were just a symptom of the bigger problem. And Kody's favoritism of you really created a lot of the problems with you being able to build trust in your relationships with the other sister wives, as well as the other children. Now, maybe this is what happens when a polygamist finds the one. They just can't help it. They can't help their bias. They can't help their favoritism. Maybe they're blinded by objectivity. And maybe the relationships with the other wives would have ended on its own time without Robin even entering into the family. But we can't say for certain. And the only relationship that was made stronger was that of the power couple that is Kody and Robin. I really believe that favoritism was the Achilles heel that ended up breaking and tearing this family unit apart as we know it. So what do you guys think? You know, as always, leave your amazing comments and your feedback and questions in the comment section below. Don't forget to watch my breakdown of the entire Sister Wives series. And yes, our adventure does not end here. Please do me a favor, give this video a like, and I will meet you over on the next video so we can start our binge fest session together.